Good afternoon. This is another segment of our interviews with history of Memphis running. And on the far end today, most of you have seen other segments. This is Mike Cody. And in the middle is one of our elite runners, Calvin Johnson, who's joining us today. And I'm going to leave it up to them to talk about the running days in the 60s, I think.
Okay, Calvin Johnson, I'm going to call you Calvin because we've known each other a long time. Before I get in sort of the history part of it, is it true, as I've heard people say, that no one in Memphis has ever run a faster mile that's from Memphis?
I believe that's pretty accurate. I had a run May 27, 1972 in Carbondale, Illinois, where I ran 4 minutes and 5 seconds per mile.
And I don't think any Memphians come close to that.
Well, I'm sure they come pretty close, but I think for as I know, for the city of Memphis, I think it's probably one of the top times ever.
Well, and I think to put that in perspective, when you consider the facilities and the programs and the coaching and the methods and the fact that most runners now don't have to do anything but run if they're professional, it's pretty amazing that you still hold that record.
Oh, thank you. And another thing, for me, going back in high school, once I got started, actually running sophomore at Melrose High School, we didn't have cross country, so they had cross country, but back in the 60s it was segregation. The leagues were all black leagues, all white leagues, and white schools did cross country. So I didn't have an opportunity to really develop the endurance until I got later in college at Memphis State.
Okay. Well, when were you born here in Memphis?
Yeah, born in Memphis.
What year?
Okay. Whoa.
Well, you're a young man.
Oh, yeah, young. I was born back in the late 40s. I put it like that.
Late 1940s, and went to grade
I went to Melrose High School. I went to Melrose for 12 years. Graduated. Then you can figure my age out. I graduated in 1967.
67.
From Melrose.
Okay.
And back at Melrose, before I was running track, I was under Coach Jesse Wilburn. One of the great secrets of Memphis back in 1965. We talked about this just a day or two ago. The Melrose team we were the first team to win a state championship in county sports once it was integration in the state of Tennessee. So 1965 track team were state champs.
And Jesse was the coach.
He was the coach. Mm-hmm.
And I think he continued to coach and be active in running, because about that time, with Jim Mathis and myself and Jackie Moran and others, we set up something called the Memphis Olympic Track Club. Okay. That Jesse was helping to coach youngsters that he thought could get opportunities to go to college outside of Memphis through their running, and he was very active, traveled around, took those kids to meets and things, and so he really was a super person to have in the Memphis running community.
That's true, and the foundation that I got at Melrose under Coach Wilburn was instrumental in me and for us learning how to run properly and learn how to compete. So once I got to college, once I got under a good coach, everything just kind of fell in place. My first 2 years, I went to Tennessee State University, and they were downsizing track after my freshman year. Sophomore year was only four guys on the team, with one distant runner, one hurdler, one high jumper, and maybe had two hurlers, a high jumper, and myself. So somebody really to train with. So I decided to transfer and came to Memphis.
And who was the coach at Memphis then?
Now, my first year was a redshirt year. I was under Coach Larry Wright, and the next year, that's when Coach Glenn Hayes came in. So
And so tell me about what year are we getting to
Okay,
then?
Memphis State, 1970.
1970.
70 through 72.
And did when you got to running with that team, those of us that are runners in Memphis know there were a lot of good athletes on that team
yes.
at that time, including John Mahundro and
Tommy Leach.
and
Then, of course, the distant runners and sprinters. We had the great, for 1 year, was Gerald Tinker, who set a world record for the 50-yard dash at the Liberty Bowl in the Coliseum.
Yeah.
And then we had Ed Hammonds, who went on to win the NCAA championship in 1972, Maurice Knight, and we had Lynn Fox. Back at the time, Coach Wright considered the fastest white person in America. Back in 1971 or 72, we were in, I think went to Knoxville, ran against John Carlos in the Dogwood relays. So we were just booming with talent back
so
then.
that was a big change going from a team that had 3 or 4 runners to one that had that quality competition. That really helps you to bring out your best.
Yes, it was really great to run with guys like John Mahundro every day. John was Forest College, one of the most talented individuals, and not so much in running also, but just for as an individual, we got to be good friends. Still are to this day. Just talented. I mean, great guy.
Yeah. Well, every time I talk to you, you talk about beating Mahundro, and every time I talk to Mahundro, he talks about beating you.
Oh, yeah.
Y'all must have kind of swapped it back and forth.
Well, I put it like this. Go back to the 710 relays. I was a senior in high school at the old Fairgrounds track.
Yeah.
You remember the original Fairgrounds Stadium, Fairgrounds
Cinders.
track? No. Before then, it was rubberized when we started running.
Okay.
It was the 710 relays, and that's when I went up and introduced myself to John.
Was he in high school too?
He was in high school. He was at Overton. I was at Melrose. And I was a year ahead of him. And I had to run. I ran a 2-mile relay prior to the mile, and I ran the mile. The next race, I ran against John, and he beat me. I was second, and John was first, and that was the only time I ran against Mahundro in high school. And then when I came to university, back then it was Memphis State University, we ran together 2 years. In the first year, John was the man for his cross country and outdoor track. But my senior year, I had a little success in the mile over John, and we ran different races indoors.
Yep.
I was more of a 1,000-yard guy in indoors. So.
Yeah, John never did have your speed. He had a lot of endurance, but he couldn't have run a 4:05 mile.
Well, I'm not so sure. I think indoors he ran 4:11 down in Houston the year I redshirted. I think John easily. I think both of us, with one more year or something, a little bit more training discipline, both of us could have gone under 4 minutes. It's not even in doubt in my mind to this day.
Yeah.
He was that good.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
And of course, I went to school with Glenn Hayes. He was a freshman, I think, when I was a senior, maybe at Rhodes College, and I think he went up to coach in Valparaiso, Indiana, or someplace up north for a year, maybe.
Right. Well, when I first met Coach, I think he was coming from Virginia Tech.
Virginia Tech.
And he came from Virginia Tech. And I think that's when I first met you. I think I had read about you in the paper, winning some races. I said, well, one day we were over at the old waterworks, and And I looked up and I saw you, and you were running. I'm always counting who's who. And I looked, so I said to the coach, I said, "Who is that guy?" He said, "Oh, don't worry." He said, "I went to college with him." I said, "Oh, thanks, man." I said, "Wow, somebody that's gonna lock me down on 9 sports cross country." And so that's when I first saw you at the Waterworks running.
I remember that.
Yeah, and I remember you winning the Thanksgiving, the turkey trots and all that. We wouldn't participate in that while we were at Memphis State.
College, yeah. Well, go on back and let me start back to kind of put it. You told us you were born in the late 1940s here in Memphis and grew up here, and went to school at Melrose and ran initially when it was still segregated.
That's correct.
When you were in high school at Melrose.
Yes.
And in those days, the black schools weren't recognized in the state records. They act like they didn't have a team,
right,
because they just gave recognition. And on an earlier program, I thought about how unfair that was, that people I knew that could have been beaten in Messick or Central or East still held state records because they didn't count guys in the black schools that could have beat them.
Right.
So what year did you last run in the segregated?
It was my senior year was 1967, and
so 67 was your senior year at Melrose.
Right, and that's when we were able to run against white schools in the regions, and then went on to the state. But that started in 1965.
So 65 is when they didn't integrate the league; they just allowed the participation in the regional and the state.
That's correct.
And recognized from that time on, I guess, records.
Right. And speaking of records, when I was probably, I think, 8th grade, and you probably remember this, one of the fastest times ever recorded in Memphis in the 100 was by Willie Dawson from Melrose, and he went some, if I remember correctly, maybe 9:1, 9:2.
Wow.
And at the old Melrose Stadium's on cinders, and there was some controversy. Wouldn't recognize as a world high school record. So that's the kind of talent we'd had in Melrose. And speaking of Dawson, in 1965,
was he a Memphis youngster?
Yeah, Willie Dawson. Yeah. And he was the star of our team in '65 that led us to the state championship over. He upset, well, I wouldn't call it an upset, but he beat Dr. Bill Hurd in the 100-yard dash, and then beat him in the 200, and we won 4x1 relay.
And Dr. Bill Hurd was where in school?
He went to Manassas.
He was at Manassas.
Right.
And he went on to Notre Dame, and I think had a great college career.
Right. And Willie Dawson, we kind of had a switch in our careers. He was the first person to actually receive a scholarship at back then Memphis State University. He signed with Memphis State for track under the late Coach Johnson, and he stayed there for a little while. He went to Tennessee State, and then I did the opposite. I went to Tennessee State, left, and came to Memphis State. But Willie Dawson was.
Who was the famous track coach at Tennessee State? Ed Temple?
Yeah, he was with the Tiger Bell.
Yeah.
And then when I got there, he was had become the coach for the men and the women. But in reality, Ralph Boston was really working with the men.
For those that aren't old enough to remember, Ralph Boston went on to win a gold medal in the Olympics in the long jump, didn't he?
He won 3. He won a gold medal, he won a silver medal, and he won a bronze medal. And the shoes he won the gold medal with, he gave to me when I was a freshman at Tennessee State, and I still have. And I ran with him all through college. Some Adidas.
Wow.
Yeah.
That's pretty.
That's the kind of person. I got to college and it said, the first meet for me was at Louisville, Kentucky, Freedom Hall. And I said, I don't have any shoes. He said, oh, here's a pair of shoes. I want them. I said, these? He said, yeah.
He was a wonderful guy. I worked with him years later in something I think you participated in too, that Tennessee Sports Festival.
Yes, I remember that,
where we
yes.
had different events.
Right, yes. All around throughout the state, I believe.
Throughout the state, and Ralph was sort of the honorary chairman of that. And but I was thinking of Ed Temple and the great women runners at Tennessee State, and the Tiger Bells, I think they called them. And of course, the most famous won mini Olympic, Wilma Rudolph.
Right.
And there was another woman, though, that's connected with your coach that was also up there and was an outstanding athlete.
Yeah, that's Miss, I always say Miss Wilburn, Miss Margaret Wilburn.
Margaret Wilburn is Jesse Wilburn, your coach's wife.
That's right, and she was Wilma Rudolph's roommate at Tennessee State, and she was a long jumper and a sprinter, and I think at one point she held the American record in the long jump. So,
and she was in one of the Olympics.
I think she was in 56, if I'm not mistaken. I think it was in Australia.
Australia.
Mm-hmm.
And then I know from just reading the papers, one of their boys was a great athlete and a football player, played maybe for the Washington Redskins.
Barry, the youngest, both of his sons were great athletes. The oldest went to Tennessee State. Both of them played at Melrose, and one went to Tennessee State, played football for a while. And the youngest went to Ole Miss and later played in the Super Bowl with the Washington Redskins. And I think Barry also ran track. He was a great hurler, also at Melrose.
Well, with Margaret and Jesse, he had
with the genes. Yes.
Well, and I was trying to think what I was going to ask you about.
Those were some great races back when I was in high school, and the competition in college at Memphis was second to none. Just being around those great guys.
Where age-wise were people like Barry Reno and Kazee? Were they younger?
Well, Barry Reno was probably 3 years ahead of me. I remember when I started, I was a trainer for Melrose track team, and I think we had our district or regional meet at the fairgrounds, and I remember Barry running on the mile. I remember running the mile relay for his team, and they didn't make it, and he was quite distraught, and I remember that. And he had the record for the 880 at that time, and ironically, I came within a tenth of a second of breaking the record my senior year. So I was able to.
Well, Barry went on and went to Baylor.
Yes.
From Frazier. He ran here at high school in Frazier, and then went to Baylor and ran on the U.S. team, national team.
Right.
Some of the meets around, and 400 and 880 or 880, 440, whatever you call it. And his coach at that time was the same coach that later coached the fastest man in the world that ran the 200 and the 400 and won the Olympics. Who am I trying to think about? Ran at Baylor.
Michael Johnson?
Michael Johnson.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, Barry's coach, he was still coaching when Michael Johnson.
Oh, really?
Yeah, ran.
Wow. Okay, that's
ran
amazing.
there. Clyde.
Yeah, I think
something like that.
Right.
And Barry was he soaking wet. He probably weighed 110 pounds.
Right. Yeah.
But he was fast.
Yeah. And going back to days of Melrose, we were like I said. 65, we were state champs. 66, we were runner-up, and we probably had a better team in 66 than we had in 65. But, as you know, when you get to the state meet, everything has to fall in place. We took four relay teams, half-milers, 100 long jumpers, and It just didn't fall in place for us. So we were second that year. And then my senior year, we took 4 guys to the state meet, and we came in 4th place. But we had one of my good friends, Terry Addison, who won and set a state record. Would have been a state record in the 440, and he was disqualified for stepping on the line, stepping outside the line, and they disqualified him, which would probably put us in about 2nd place. So we were the team that got it rolling in Memphis for statewide Melrose, and then the next year, my senior year, BTW won the state championship, and then later, I think the next year, Manassas won, and then Southside won back-to-back. So now Central is the big school.
Yeah, well, it's. I remember going to Melrose and watching some big football game where whoever was the best halfback got to wear gold shoes.
Yeah, we started golden. That was BTW. We started the golden shoes. That was Oscar Reed.
Okay.
Yeah, Oscar
and he
Reed.
turned out to be a pretty good athlete.
Yes, he was really good at Colorado State.
Yeah.
And matter of fact, he was primed to be on Sports Illustrated, coming out the greatest running back, until it was a guy out at Southern Cal who came from San Francisco City College and was at Southern Cal. And in spring practice, he took the first ball, I think he ran like 80 yards in practice, and then the next one, he took it 50 yards, and Coach McKay said, well, you go ahead and run track, and that was O.J. Simpson.
O.J. Simpson.
So that's how good Oscar Reed was.
Yeah,
but,
I knew he was good.
Yeah, getting back to Oscar Reed, back in those days, getting back to my days at Melrose, which were just astronomical. Like Willie Dawson, one of the greatest football games I ever saw was at Crump Stadium when Melrose played BTW in some of the...
That's Booker T. Washington.
Booker T. Washington.
Yeah.
We had, back then, Bobby Smith, who's one of the greatest athletes, the greatest athlete I think to ever come out of the city of Memphis, who played basketball. He was on football, and Willie Dawson was playing safety for Melrose, and he called J.W. Richards, I believe it was, from BTW at an angle that kept the score tied for Melrose, and J.W. was one of BTW's fastest players, so it was astronomical.
Wow.
Yeah.
And of course, you'd have thousands of people at Crump Stadium watching
watch that game. Yeah, well, that was, I think it was probably the first time we were allowed to play in Crump Stadium for that game, because it was such a big draw. We had played BTW earlier, and I think it was for maybe the league championship or Blues Bowl or something. But there were so many people at Melrose that they decided to allow us to play the game at Crump Stadium.
Well, how did you sort of segue from being you and Mahundro the best out at Memphis State in college, and then get into road racing and things after your career in college? What did you keep on running straight out of college, or did you?
Yes. What happened? Once I graduated from Memphis State, Coach Hayes was instrumental in encouraging me to keep running, because my dream was to be the first Black American to break the 4-minute mile, and that was my dream.
You were close to it.
I was close to it, and if I had been a little bit more disciplined and listened to Coach, I no doubt I believe I could have done that. But I ran some indoor races, and I ran a couple outdoor races the year after I graduated from Memphis State. And then after that, start working, and then trying to work a full-time job and train was like trying to juggle. So, and I think it was Bud Joyner who kept encouraging me. He said, we got a 5-mile race, and we got this race, and he said, I want you to get in this. And it took a while, but once I started back to training, I think Mahundro was still running, and he was being active in the road races. Mm-hmm. So I got restarted back probably a little bit in 76, but I was always running, even after college.
Yeah.
I just wasn't racing this much.
Right. Well, in addition to having the reputation, which we've just established as the truth of the fastest mile runner ever in Memphis, you also have a reputation of being somebody who has run longer without hurting yourself badly than anybody. Your program is one that people should emulate to keep you fit and not hurt, because it's amazing to watch. When you run fast, you're burning up the track, and when you run slow, you are really running slow.
Yeah, okay. I think I learned that from Coach Hayes and John Mahandro. I think John was probably the perfect person for the ability to run really slow and run really fast. And now, when a lot of people see me, it takes a little bit more time sometimes to recover from the workout. Some reason why I be running slow. But I really enjoy running harder than I do slower. I feel much better running hard workouts than I do just going out easy. And then some days it just kind of balances out.
Well, people say they see you on Saturday or Sunday just out running 20 miles just out on the streets.
Yeah, I gotta be thankful for the good Lord for giving me such a frame that I don't have much to carry. Which I could lose, maybe 5 more pounds and get back to that good college weight. But what I try to do is I listen to my body, like you read, and that's the truth. You listen to your body, and I took some advice from you many years ago. Started running a little bit more on the grass and running somewhat in the trails in the park, which is I enjoy running on the dirt a lot more than roads. But when you got to get a long run in, for me, I find it a little bit easier to go out long through the city and then come back. Yeah, especially.
Well, most people. Go ahead.
You on a special diet of any kind, or?
No, I wish I could, but I just kind of watch what I eat for. Is just been blessed, that I don't really, watch. I don't eat a lot of meat, and I don't eat a whole lot. Now it's just my wife and I at home, so we try to split a meal, and when we go out to eat, so try to.
Calvin lives in my neighborhood, and his wife runs by my house. I see him in the park, and then see your wife coming down McLean.
Yeah, and another good thing is it took for us, running. It took my wife a time to understand, the importance of training every day, because when all of a sudden you get married and say, I'm going to go out for a run. I said, what do you mean you go out for a run? She just ran yesterday. Well, got to train every day. Yeah.
She didn't know that you had an addiction.
Yeah, right, yeah. So.
Well, as you said, when you got out of college and you continued to sort of be interested in to keep up your running, but you had family and you had to go to work and work full-time days and things. What profession and work did you do out of college and up until the time maybe you're retired now?
When I first got out of college, I started working for, back then it was First National Bank, and left First National, got into, I guess you could say, the food service, started working for Paul Lads. And I was going in graduate school working on my master's in management. So I did that, and then worked for Holiday Inns. In between that, got married to the former Denise Keys. And so after that, right now I work for the Shelby County Schools. I've been with them for going on my, I think, 34th or 35th year.
That's kind of what my memory is, mainly because you've been with the school system so long.
Right.
And I think your wife was also a principal.
Yeah, right. She retired as being a principal at Tresman High School now. She's working over in Arkansas. She's retired from Arkansas, but she went back to work in Arkansas, so she's still working.
Good. Well, what kind of, Bill writes a column for the Runners magazine about how much fun we used to have in the old days.
Oh,
and,
okay.
how the young people now maybe don't want to work as hard
Yeah.
as we think we used to.
Oh,
And when you look at some, let's just say, that take the Memphis Marathon, the local runners in it, if you look back in the 1970s, for instance, the times were so much faster in these events than they are
Yes.
now. What do you attribute that to?
Well, I think at that particular time, back in the 70s, early 70s, it was a rarity. You had John Mahundro that was still active and running, and you had a couple of guys from the University of Memphis that participated in some road races. But John Mahundro was, top of the line for his ability to run really fast, and his times were, some of them probably would never be broken.
Well, the Shelby Forest 8-miler,
Right.
Yeah.
he's held that.
He still holds it.
He
And
still
matter of
holds
fact, I asked John about that race, and because when I saw it this time in the paper that Sunday morning, I never forget it. I looked, saw his picture there, and I called him up and said, "John, how you run that fast?" And he said, my nickname is Tookie. He said, "Well, Tookie, it started sleeting and I started running faster." So he ran something like 8 miles, and I think he averaged like 5 minutes and 5 seconds or something like that.
And for people that don't know, that is the hilliest course that you could find in the Mid-South.
Right.
I mean, it is
It is,
straight up
yes.
and down.
Yes.
And running that fast on that course, I don't think anyone will ever touch that.
Me either. I think, to me, it's probably one of the greatest achievements ever for road race times in the city of Memphis. And I think another great achievement was Nick Lewis from Rhodes College, your alma mater,
Yeah.
went out and came in second in the 100-miler.
At Leadville.
Yeah, Leadville.
Yeah,
So
first race.
yes,
His first
race,
time.
Yes,
Yeah.
so 100 miles.
Yeah.
Wow. So.
Well, we've all seen, Bill's been viewed this as well as you have and I have. When we started out, it was mainly a track sport. It wasn't a road sport. You were running on the track. You were fast.
Yeah.
Nothing was slow.
Right.
Everything was competitive, and everybody was going full steam and hard training.
Right.
And there weren't very many people doing it. It was a more of, you use the word elite. There was a smaller number. Today, it's not that elite sport anymore on the local scene. It's more of a social event. People want to run a marathon, and they're happy if it takes them 4.5 hours or 5 hours to do it, but it's accomplishment for them.
And I recall going back in high school in Melrose, and I would talk to some other guys with high school come up and they asked about our workout. And I asked them what kind of workouts they were doing, what they were doing, and our warm-ups were even more so than what some schools were actually doing. I mean, Coach Wilburn taught us how to work hard and instill that. The reason why you had to work hard, because you didn't want to embarrass yourself, you didn't want to embarrass your family, you didn't want to embarrass Melrose. So I learned how to work hard at Melrose, and then I had some guys that were maybe a year ahead of me were pretty good, were good runners. Michael Swift, and then had a guy with same class with me, Howard Suggs, who I ran with for a couple of years. We pushed each other every day in practice. So.
Well, when I was running in the 50s, everything was repeat intervals.
Okay.
When y'all got around in the mid-60s into your college in the 70s, y'all had begun to incorporate some slow distance work with your interval speed work, hadn't you?
That's right. I remember with Coach Hayes, he was like, I'd say semi-genius as far as getting a distant runner. If you did what he said, it took us a while to understand it. Learn how to run twice a day. The first workout in the mornings, he would start us out maybe 15 minutes and build up to 30 and 45 minutes, and then go to so many miles. But we got that in, and then in the afternoons we would do our regular, workouts, what they would be. Even during cross country season, we did mostly long runs and tempo runs, and then maybe every couple of weeks we might do some work on the track. But it was mostly learning how to do tempo runs, and that was.
What is a tempo run for somebody maybe watching?
Oh, well, tempo is when you go out and you run at a pace close to race pace, a pace that you could hold, and also maybe carry on a small conversation. But for me, to learn how to do it is like almost all out. When you had to run with guys like Mahundro and Leach and Gallo and Dennis Seegers and those guys back then. But once you got used to doing it, and the more we did, it got to be easier.
But you would vary your pace. You'd run full out like that, but then you would have a break in it and then start back up.
Yeah. I think the race that really taught me how to, the workout that really taught me how to run tempo, we would do a run at the old Kennedy complex. We would go east on Park to White Station, from White Station up to Poplar, from Poplar to Howland. And we had to do it, I think we had to do it in it was 8 miles, and we had to be done, we had to do it in a 6-minute mile pace. So.
And that's hard when you're in traffic.
Oh, yeah. It was like 6 minutes, and Coach had a whole lot of different techniques. And after college, at some of the workouts he kind of designed for distant runners, you would do 2 miles. You had to do it within 15 minutes. So if you ran it in 11 minutes or 12 minutes, you had 3 minutes rest. But if you ran in 14 minutes, you only had a minute rest. So it was
incentive.
Yeah, that's right. It was incentive to run it faster. And then we did things like that.
Well, so many, again, I was running 10 or 15 years before you were, and there was no work in the gym, no weights or exercises. And now that's a huge part of the college runners program, is to get in the gym and do your upper body work. Did y'all, were you beginning to do body weight work and stuff?
No, all that we had in Melrose, we had a machine like a leg lift. And we work on that for a little bit, do some leg lifts. That's basically.
Didn't do any free weights or anything like that?
No free weights, anything.
Well, what about in college?
No, my last year in college, I started. The sprinters would always go and they would do lifting weights, and they would always. I was so small. They said, "You need to put on some weight." So they had me trying to lift some weights, but I tried to do it. I never was a big weight lifter. So.
And you don't. Do you do any what we would call cross training, like swimming, biking, weights now, or do you just?
No, I just run. I just run. Many years ago, I had an old what we call stationary bicycle, and I would. On some bad days, I would ride the stationary bicycle, but I said no. I just kind of sneak out the house before my wife wakes up and get a good run in on bad days.
The other thing that I tell people, and I hear all the coaches say, whether they do it or not, is that you've got to have, if you run hard, you got to have some rest days. But I never see you having a rest day.
Well.
I know you run slow, but do you have any day during the week you don't run at all?
I'm going to give you examples. This past week, I'm a little eccentric, I guess. Monday, I did on the 5K loop. I did four time 1 mile with about 2-minute rest, and then I did 2 time 1/2 mile on the hill loop. And so that was on Monday.
That was a hard workout.
Yeah, and then Tuesday, I went back on the 5K loop, and I did a 1/4 mile repeats at about 90-second rest, 12 of those. Then Wednesday, I did about 8.5 miles easy run, and then today I did 2 time 1 mile, 2 times 3/4 of a mile on the 5K loop, and then I did a half mile on the hill loop.
So what do you do Friday, Saturday, and Sunday?
Well, if everything goes
Rest,
well,
I hope.
If everything goes well, the good Lord let me wake up, I plan to do a long run either Friday, which will be about 15 or 16 tomorrow, or I might do 12 and do a long run on Saturday.
Now, you're working too.
Yeah, I work. Do it early in the morning. Yeah.
All right, that's Friday.
Yeah. Well, but Friday's a holiday for us. So.
Yeah, but I know, but normal Friday. Right?
Yeah. So that's, and then to try to get in 3 or 4 hard days. Because I read something, I don't know how true it is. They said, if you run slow, you become a good old slow runner. So we have to run fast sometimes to compete. So we begin to get back into some 5K races. So.
But you don't have any day that you just pick up the newspaper or turn on the radio and stay in bed and whatever. You run every day.
Yeah, well, I've only missed this year. I got to be truthful. I missed 1 day this year, and then the year before that, I don't think I missed. I think I went about out of the last 10 years, I haven't missed 5 days.
Remarkable.
Well, I'm a sort of, Bill, you can follow up, but I want to finish up my part of it by saying, ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls out there, do you want to know why this guy is the fastest runner we've ever had in Memphis? Here born in the late 1940s, and he's doing that kind of workout every week, and he's not getting hurt.
Well, it's a blessing from God, and my wife, she runs, and she try to make sure that try to take it easy. But I guess I just learned from days in Melrose, and then days working with Coach Hayes, what it takes if you ever want to try to run decent. So some days I just like running hard, and I just like going out most of the days.
I feel like it, but I don't do it. I think, thinking you probably get up at 5 o'clock in the morning to get a run in. And I've seen you in the park, as Mike has.
Yeah, I was there at 7, and he was halfway through or almost completely through.
It's just remarkable to see that we still have an athlete, and you're now in your early 60s, I guess.
Well, I'm hitting, I'm in the 60s, All right.
I think you'll take early.
I'll take early.
I'm being cautious.
Well, I'm still on the 6th floor, put it like that.
Okay.
Yeah, we're going to go.
Well, I appreciate both of y'all, again, showing up today. I think when we finish this series, I think it's just going to be remarkable, the information that we're going to have and the people that will have come through here, and hopefully there'll be somebody who wants to see this someday rather than just us.
Okay.
But thanks again.
But thanks for having me.
Always a pleasure. Always wonderful to see Mike.
Okay. Yeah, it's always good to be around Mike Cody.
But I think that's it for us.